Hey, Rocky Fork, thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll stay connected with us by downloading our app and following along all the events we have going on.
Hey, Rocky Fork! Oh, you have a good church. This is awesome. There's a good community in the background. I love the pond. Good music. You guys proud of your church? You've got a good church here. Yeah. Yeah, that's my wife. They take up a whole row. I've got this whole row of family here, so my kids sitting there, so you have to shake their hands later. I love church. I've grown up in church, been in church my whole life, been ministering in church my whole life, and I found something to be true. My mother told me whenever I was a kid, she said, people are the same everywhere you go. That's not true. It's not true. Not every church is the same. Churches are very different from each other. You come into some churches, and they're very boring. You come into other churches, and they're way too exciting. There's all kinds of churches. What should the vision of the church be? I want to share with you Jesus' vision of the church today, because Jesus described the church before it even existed. He had this conversation with his disciples on what that church was going to look like. And I'm going to actually only preach from 3 words today, but I'll take a little bit of time getting there, if that's okay. Before I read the passage, I want to set it up so that you can kind of get what's going on, okay? There was a mountain, Mount Hermon, and it's way up north. And at the bottom of the mountain, there was this giant rock, this huge boulder, big rock formation. And in this giant rock, there was a cave. Huge cave, looked like the Bat Cave. Big. And in the cave, there used to be a spring. And it was gushing. All this water is just gushing out of it. And it poured into a river that came out of this mountain. So it didn't make sense, why is there water coming out of the mountain? And the Greeks tried to figure out where this water was coming from, and they tried to measure to see where the bottom of that spring was, and they couldn't get to the bottom. So they came up with this belief. They started to teach the spring originates in the underworld. And they called this cave the gates of Hades. Okay? And they worshiped outside of this cave, outside of the gates of Hades. And they had a temple there where they worshiped a Greek god, Pan. Is there any Percy Jackson fans in here? No? Got one hand? You might know who we're talking about. You have to explain to your parents later, okay? Yeah, Pan is that fawn god. He has like goat legs and the horns, and he plays a flute. He's mischievous. It's where we get the word panic, right? He's kind of mischievous. And he's known for this. He is the only Greek god who died. So he is now in the underworld. So if you're going to worship Pan, the best place to do it is at the gates of Hades. Are you with me? I'm setting it up. I'll read the text here in a second. This will make sense in a second, okay? So Pan's worship is done right outside of this cave, and they would go over and get a goat, and they would play a flute, kind of like Peter Pan, and they'd play a flute, and they'd dance with this goat all the way over through the temple of Pan, all the way over to the gates of Hades, and then they would kill the goat, and then try to send the goat to the underworld. And so they would take their goat and they would kind of try to push it down. And they would hope, it's a spring gushing up, so surely it rarely happened, but the hope was that this goat would make its way all the way to Pan. But if it came back up, your sacrifice was rejected. You'd sell the meat, bury the carcass, and do it again. And it said that here in the city of Caesarea Philippi, it said that that river always ran red. There's just so much sacrifice that they're doing, trying to get their sacrifices all the way to Pan in the underworld. That's on one end. And then on the other end, there's a prophecy in the Old Testament about one who is like the Son of Man, who is going to come into the presence of the Ancient of Days. Jesus loved to call himself the Son of Man. He's that guy that's going to come into the presence of the Ancient of Days. Now I'll read my text, okay? This is Matthew chapter 16. Starting with verse 13, it says, "When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, 'Who do people say the Son of Man is?' And they replied, 'Well, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets.' Okay. But what about you? Who do you say I am?" And Peter always opens his mouth. He normally says the wrong thing, but here he hit a grand slam. "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And I've wondered now, after learning about Caesarea Philippi, do you think he's watching all these people sacrificing to this dead God? And he's like, "You're Son of the living God. You're on the other side of this, right?" And Jesus goes, "Bingo! Bingo was his name-o. Yes, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I'm going to build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Okay, well, that changes the text a little bit, doesn't it? This whole location is kind of interesting. What I want to do today is I want to reach in and grab hold of 3 words, one at a time, and I want to ask us today, what does this word teach us about Jesus' vision of the church? So I'll reach in and take hold of the first word, and I want to pull out the little word my. I will build my church. I will build my church. What does that word my teach us? He didn't say, "I will build a church," or "I will build the church," or another church. He owned it. I'm going to build my church. And usually whenever I say the word my, I'm talking about ownership. This is my phone. I own this phone. It's mine. These are my shoes. This is my shirt. These are my glasses. That's my car. This is my house. When I say my, I mean I own it, don't I? But I don't always mean that when I say the word my. I might say, this is my friend. I don't own that friend, do I? I don't own him. I'm describing the relationship I have with him. What is this relationship? Well, it's my friend. And I'm sure, is there anyone in here that's ever called your church my church? Hey, I'd love for you to come to my church. You don't mean that you own the church, do you? Well, of course not. You're talking about the relation. This is where I go. This is my community. But when Jesus says my church, what did he mean? I will build my church. Well, that doesn't sound like a relationship to me. That sounds like someone who's taken ownership. It's like, I'm going to build it for me. I'm going to build it by me. It's my church. And I've got this idea for a church. I'm the one coming up with it. And I'm going to build my church a certain way. And so I say that to say this. The church needs to be all about Jesus Christ. Because it's his completely. It's all his. Everything we do ought to be about Jesus. Well, what's the worship like? You have good worship? Well, who cares? Does it please Jesus? What's your sermons like? Who cares? Does Jesus like the sermons? Because it's all about him. It's his. How about the community? Well, does it make Jesus proud? That ought to be at the forefront of your mind all the time. Is this truly Jesus' church? I went to a church once that had plaques everywhere that in memory of someone donated for this. They had them in the Sunday school classrooms, on the doors when you go in. So I assume someone donated money for the supplies in the classroom. Now, I don't know. Maybe they don't. I don't know how you get your name on a door there. But they had wooden pews. And on the end of every wooden pew was this metal plate that said, in memory of, in memory of, in memory of, in memory. I mean, almost like halfway at least. All these pews had someone's name on it. I assume someone donated money for the pews. But there's one thing they did that I just went, that seems so wrong. They had up front this giant wooden communion table. One of those that said, you may have seen one before, it said on the table, in memory of, in remembrance of, or something like that. But someone put a little metal plate on the communion table that said, in memory of, and it had a name other than the name Jesus. I don't remember what it was, like Doug Smith or whatever. It's like, that seems so wrong, doesn't it? Like, don't put it there. Put it in the restroom or something. You're going to put the plate here? Yeah, but I think that we do this a lot. We don't put actual plates everywhere, but it's like we try to put our opinions on everything. We try to decide whether or not I like this, or if I like that, or if I don't like this. Look, it's not your church. It's Jesus's. It's ours in the fact that we have a relationship with it. It's ours in the fact that we may love it, but he's the owner. He's the king. It's his church. Now, I want to take my hand and I want to grab a second word. I want to reach in and I want to pull out the little word rock. Rock. And I'll build my church on the rock. What does that mean? I'll build it on the rock. Well, first, I will say this. There are many Christians that misunderstand what Jesus is saying. He didn't call Peter the rock. What Peter said was the rock. What he said was the rock. Peter's not the rock. Jesus turns to Peter and says, so, who do you say I am? And Peter, he hit that grand slam. You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus seems to get excited about it. Oh, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. I'd love to have someone say, blessed are you, Darin, for just what you said. Blessed are you. For this was a revelation not from flesh and blood. It's a revelation from God. God sent this revelation to you. Oh, what you just said. Oh, I love it. I love it. So you're now small stone. He calls them small stone. You're rock. And on this boulder of what you just said, I'm going to build my church, this foundation of faith in me. But there's something I see whenever I look at the word rock. Because Jesus could have used any illustration he wanted. He could have said this, Peter, oh man, you are water. And in this ocean, I'm going to sail my church. He could have said something like that. He could have said, oh, Peter, you're a spark. And in this forest fire, I'm going to burn my church. He could have said something like that. He could have said, you're wind. And in this hurricane, I'm going to blow my church. He could have used any illustration he wanted, is my point. But when Jesus thought about the church, granted, he's standing next to a giant rock with a river coming out of it, but he says, I'm going to use the word rock here. And I'm going to build my church on something that is stable. I'm going to build a church where you can come in this world of quicksand, in a world that is tossing back and forth, that struggles to figure out what truth is. I'm going to build my church on faith in me, and it's going to give you stability. So, my family can intimidate people when we walk in the door. There's 8 of us walking in, and people are like, oh no, a bus just showed up. It's not like there's only 8 of us. Chill out. I went to eat at Hardee's once. I remember when I came in, the young lady that's behind the counter, her first words were, wow, you brought everyone. Like, how do you know? But yeah, we brought everyone. Yeah, there's a lot of us. We ordered our food. I ordered a hot ham and cheese, and we went over and we sat down. And while we're sitting, they finally bring the food. We start passing it out. But while we're sitting, that young girl left the counter, came around into the dining area. There's no one else in this Hardee's. It's late. It's my family. She has no one else to serve, unfortunately. And so she came over and she stood like inches from me while I'm sitting. She just stood right there and just kind of stared at us. Now I'm sitting there and I look up. I said, is everything okay? Yeah. Okay. So we all get our food now. Is there anyone in here that you pray before you eat? Anyone do that? Yeah, so we want to eat, but it's time to do that customary prayer first, right? We're going to pray and say, God, thank you for the food. But she's standing right here. So I thought, well, I'll give her a clue to leave. So I said, I think we're all good. And she said, you sure have a lot of kids. Are they all yours? What in the world? She's not leaving. Have you ever gotten frustrated and you're trying not to show it? And my chest, I'm getting frustrated because I want her to leave me alone. She is in my space. My hot ham and cheese is going to get cold because she's standing right there because I can't pray and eat my sandwich. So I'm frustrated. And I'm trying to figure out how can I get rid of this girl. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure it out. And I said, yeah, we have 6 kids. Been over this already. And I'm trying to figure out how do I get rid of her? And I finally decide we have to pray. It's too awkward to have her here. So I decide I'm just going to be blunt with her. This is what I decided. So I look up. I'm about ready to say, hey, do you mind leaving us alone so we can pray? I'm going to say this to her. I'm a minister. I'm going to say, leave me alone, right? And she says, I bet you guys go to church. Yeah, we go to church. I'm a minister. She said, I thought so. I've been to church twice. And I looked up at her. I said, oh, did your family take you to church? She said, no, my mom threw me out of the house. But I've been to church a couple times with my boyfriend. I said, your mom threw you out of the house? What happened? She said, well, she said I was fighting too much with her boyfriend. So she kicked me out. I said, how old are you? I'm 16. I'm still working here. I said, oh, okay. And where are you living? I moved in with my boyfriend, but his parents said I can't stay there, so I have to find another place to stay in a couple weeks. I said, oh. Do you have another place to stay? I have a couple friends. They said I could spend a night or two with them. Oh. So now I'm sitting here and I feel like the biggest jerk ever. And this is like a picture of the church, isn't it? It's like here I am. I want to come in and pray with my people. I want to come over and I want to pray together and so we can eat together and so we can have fun with each other. And there's someone standing right next to me and I'm like, will she just go away? And here she is, desperate for what I have. And I'm realizing she's looking, going, there's a lot of kids there. I think this is a church family. And she's like coming over, going, how can I have that stability? She's trying to figure that out. And Jesus, when he talked about a rock, I just think it's a great illustration, isn't it? It's like I'm going to build my church on this rock, this foundation, and that foundation's solid. I know it is because it's me. I'm that foundation, and you can build a church upon it, and you can find stability. A church is not only supposed to be all about Jesus Christ, but it's supposed to be providing stability in a world that's falling apart. And people should be able to come to a church and find safety and truth and direction, some stability in a world that's gone crazy. That's Jesus' vision of the church. It's something that's built on a rock. I want to grab one more word if I could. I want to reach in and grab my favorite word in this passage. It's the word gates. The word gates. You probably knew that was coming. Gates. Oh, I'm a slow thinker. Sometimes it takes me a while to catch up. For years, I would read this passage about the gates. And for years, as I'm reading it, I was always picturing in my head some sort of a defensive posture for the church. So I would like apply it like this. It's like, the gates of Hades will not overcome the church, okay? Okay, so listen, church. No matter what attacks you, you can stand strong. If things seem like they're falling apart, if temptation comes in, if there's quarrels among you, if there's something persecuting you, whatever it is, stand up. Do not be afraid, for the gates of Hades will not overcome the church. And then one day I'm reading this passage, and I'm reading it, and I just finally read the word gates, and I just paused. Went, gates? Wait a second. When do you see your enemy's gates? What? Do you see your enemy's gates when they are attacking you? Sound the alarm! Sound the alarm! What is it? Commander, it's terrible. I see the enemy approaching. Oh no, how many are there? Oh, there's a lot of them. They have swords. They have shields. I count 25, 30 chariots and, oh no. What is it? They have their gates. They've taken the gates off of their city walls. They're dragging them across the field right now. They're going to be here at any time. What are we going to do? Never fear, men. Do not worry. The gates of Hades will not overcome us. Why was I seeing this in a defensive posture? I don't know. But that's how I was viewing this passage. And I finally went, wait a second. Gates. There's only one time you see your enemy's gates. And that's not when they are attacking you. It's when you are picking up your weapons. You're grabbing your community. You're walking out of your gates, across the field, all the way north, all the way up to the gates of Hades. Right? And you come in and go, I'm taking those gates down. I'm pounding in. Let's go. We are attacking them. And who are we attacking? Death itself. Let's go into the underworld. Let's go there. Boom, we're knocking down these gates. Keep attacking. Knock it down. We're going to get in. If we keep hitting, if we keep pounding, these gates are going to go busting open at any time. Keep hitting. I'm getting tired. Don't get tired, man. Don't lose heart. The gates will not overcome us. That's how you apply it. So keep attacking, because our Lord Jesus Christ already conquered death. He already broke through those gates. He broke through and conquered it, and he stole the keys. And now we, as a church, are able to get through. And as Peter is standing there listening to Jesus, he looks out and he sees the gates of Hades. All of these people that are trying to get in, that are trying to get their sacrifice down. Let's worship our dead God. And Jesus comes along, the Son of Man, the one who can enter into the very presence of God. And he says, we're going through. We're going to keep pounding and pounding. And finally, those gates are going to go busting open. And when we get through, we're going to take our hands and we're going to put it on people. And we're going to say, I am here to save you. Come with me. There's a church that's built on the name of Jesus Christ. There's a church that's all about him, and he can bring you stability. He can bring you life. He's the Son of the living God. When Jesus described the church, he described a church that was going to be all about him. It was going to be all about belief in him, and it was going to bring stability and safety to others. And he dreamed of a church that would be offensive, that would be going out to save the world. And the grim reaper is the one on the other side, and he's the one cowering because our Lord has overcome Hades itself. Be that church. Be the church that Jesus dreamed of. Be a church of warriors and save people's lives.